Welcome back to Branching Out, where real estate meets real life. And we are here today with my friend, Michelle Vine. Thank you for being here. So excited to have you.
Me too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do. And let's start there.
Okay, sure. So I am a real estate attorney and have been for almost a decade. So it's been quite a while. I have 4 kids, aging from 10 to 6. So
You're busy.
I am very busy, just a little. And I am engaged as well, so I've got that going on.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I work with Galbraith Costner.
Okay.
So my firm may be more recognized by just Costner Law because that's what we were initially, and then we merged about, I want to say like 8 months ago or so into Galbraith Costner. So it's a bigger firm. Our goal is to become like the biggest firm in the Southeast because that's where the area is for there to be attorneys doing real estate and not just title companies.
Love that.
Yeah.
So what got you into real estate law? Did you always want to do that, or was that something?
Most definitely not. I think in law school, real estate law was like the boring subject.
Okay.
You know, like the one that no one really wanted. We had to take as like a prereq, but it wasn't super exciting. It wasn't like criminal law or, anything super exciting. When I first started, I wanted to be a trial attorney.
Okay.
I enjoyed the adrenaline rush and being nervous, being in front of a judge with other attorneys there. And so I did trial team, I did, mock trial and all of the writing things because you do actually write a lot of briefs and things like that when you're a trial attorney. So when I first got out of law school, I did criminal. But
Here? In Cabarrus County?
In Cabarrus County.
Oh, where'd you go to college? Where'd you go to law school?
I went to the Charlotte School of Law.
Okay.
So we kind of ended up getting a bad rep after I graduated. There were some things with Charlotte School of Law, but I was really blessed to go there. Passed the bar the first time, which
Awesome.
I was very proud of at the time. And so I did criminal, not on the defense side. So in Cabarrus County, we don't have a public defender's office. So like Mecklenburg County has a really big public defender office, and there's all these attorneys and huge public defender, just like the DA. But in Cabarrus County, we only have a DA's office. So I was doing a lot of just court-appointed cases. So nothing like super fun, like little misdemeanors and traffic tickets. But it was nice.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting an interesting client, and I was really trying to help her, like legitimately trying to get her out of a charge I knew she was guilty of. And just because of the way she was, and I was trying to find like the little pieces in the law of what she had been charged with to say, well, you didn't find this element, so you can't charge her. And she wanted me to take it to trial, and I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea, but I will do what you want me to do. And when we took it to trial that day in front of the judge, the officer and the DA realized they had charged her incorrectly. So the element that was missing, they had noticed. And so they stopped it and they recharged her. Like, oh, we're going to amend our complaint and we're going to recharge her with the correct statute. And so I was like, yeah, okay. Well, now we don't really have a case because that was like the only thing I had in this case. And so it just got really interesting. She got really upset and she was calling me in the middle of the night and like, I'm like, what am I doing? I had just started to have like my first kid and I thought, I cannot be doing work that I'm scared to go to my vehicle after I leave the courthouse.
Yeah.
Because I don't have, an office to protect me. It's just me. And so I started looking and God just opened a door. He just opened a door and someone was looking for an attorney in Cornelius, North Carolina. And she had her own office. She was looking for one more associate, and she had one paralegal. And I went in, I was pregnant with my second child, and I was super pregnant. And I thought for sure, like, I'm not going to get this job. Like, the lady's just going to see I'm about to, like, give birth in a couple months, and she's going to be like, no, I don't want to take that chance. Mm. But, again, God, he opened those doors, and I went in, and she hired me, and legitimately, I am so thankful for her, actually, the lady that I first worked with. She taught me everything about real estate. She had me doing title searches. She had me looking at everything. She taught me a closing from start to finish. And most closing attorneys that you will meet now do not know the entire process. They will know bits and pieces of the process, or they're only a title attorney. All they do is review title, or all they do is do signings, or all, and she just was like, good luck. Here's all the stuff, learn it, and I want you to do everything. And I'm beyond grateful for that, because I wouldn't be where I am right now without her help and her trust that I could come in and learn all this new stuff with her.
For sure. I mean, that's the beauty of a good mentor. And now look at you.
Yes.
That's awesome. I love that. All right. So speaking of getting into real estate law, so most of our listeners are investors. So is there any kind of difference in a closing between a traditional home buyer and an investor? Or is it basically the same process?
I mean, it is the same process in that, you have a start and you get to a finish line, right? You have the initial contract and you've got to do the deed recording, right? So you have to get from one place to the other. I think, though, typically for a regular residential contract, most of the time, 90% of the time, we're looking at lenders, right? We're looking at the buyer having a lender, and they're buying a home that they want to be perfect for them. Whereas for investors, 90% of them are cash or private lenders, which we don't have on the residential side. So there's less regulation there with the private lenders as far as the condition of the house.
Yep.
So you're finding a lot more of individuals who they're not as interested. Like, yeah, they might want a home inspection, but they may not be as interested because they already know, oh, this is a wash. Yeah. Like, I'm going to have to gut this house and redo it and all of that. You're usually dealing with, and on the investor side, you're dealing with a little bit more complicated sellers, I say. Because if you think about the purchase price that investors are looking for, right? They're looking for that good sweet spot in the purchase side, but some of that comes with more complications because there's a reason they're selling it for dirt cheap, Like, you want to know, I have one investor, and he's always just like, how come my deals are always so messy? And I said, because look at what you're trying to buy.
You're buying. Yeah.
Look at what you're trying to buy. Like, look at the sale price and who you're speaking to, and you might get, like, a lot of estates that you're just listening to the seller's story, and you're just going by what they're saying, and you're not really getting, maybe that's a good tip, you're not really getting all the documentation you need, or it's vacant land that's been in a family for generations.
Yeah, I was going to touch on the different types of sale, so like an estate sale or a foreclosure, and so is like the title search then kind of the piece of those transactions?
I don't think it's necessarily like the contacts, right? Not like the individuals themselves, like people. It's more the title search, and it's more the complexity of, so for example, I would say that on resale side of things, more people tend to get title insurance when they buy properties because they are getting loans. They're getting big mortgages on their houses. And so they have the title insurance that we can look at and then go from there. Whereas investors, we're looking more at properties that maybe weren't bought with title insurance. And
or families owned it for 100 years.
And they're like, oh, it's no big deal. It's been passed down from, my granddad to then, my grandson and then
no
me.
Documentation.
And then, no documentation. Like, okay. And so you're having to put together like all these family trees, and you're having to figure out what happened, and then people are upset. And so, I mean, it can be people, but most of the time it's the title insurance and what's being sold.
So this brings up another good question. So for people that don't really know, what is a title search? Like, what are you looking for when you do a title search?
A title search can be super long, meaning it's like 30 years, which is usually that's the minimum range we need to get to is 30 years.
Right.
If there's been a policy already in place by the current owner, then we call it tacking to that policy. So we don't have to search back before that policy.
Got it.
We can go from that current policy moving forward. And we're going to look at the tax records, make sure all the taxes have been paid for the last 10 years. We're going to look at the deeds that got recorded to make sure the proper people signed them, they were notarized, the owner's name was correct, the legal description was correct, the parcel number was correct. We don't really care as much about the property address. People tend to get weird about the property address sometimes, and I always go, I hate to tell you this, but legally speaking, that property address doesn't really matter to me.
I've noticed that.
Because property addresses over time change. Right? Numbers change, street addresses change.
Or vacant lot doesn't have an address and it's 000 Main Street.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Right. So for us, it's the parcel number and it's the legal. So we have to make sure that certain things are within the legal. So there's different kinds of legals. We have some legals that are according to a recorded map or a recorded plat. So lot 44 of Woodbridge subdivision, right? We have to make sure it's labeled correctly, make sure that the lot's on the right street and all of that. Sometimes we have legal descriptions that we call meets and bounds.
Yep.
Which those are super fun, right?
I learned about that in real estate class.
500 feet north, southeast, behind the tree. That's when they get really interesting, right? When there's like no set meets and bounds. It's like to the middle point of the river. And you're like, you're joking. Right? Like the river.
100 years ago, there was no river anymore.
Yes, the river has moved or it's not there anymore, right? So we have to look at the legal description because we want to make sure it's correct. Because if the legal description is too old or it's too convoluted, we've got to correct it. We maybe need to have a new survey done. So we've got to look at those. We look at the past deeds. So we call deeds that, say it's a big piece of property, and then it got subdivided and chunks were taken out and deeded to other owners. We have to look at those deeds as well because we call them less and accept deeds. So, for example, I have a closing right now, and I told the seller when the deal came across to me, actually, I said, we're going to need a new survey. I can tell you without the title search being done, I'm looking, and the current legal description is, here's this property, less than accept this, less than accept this, less than accept this, and then here's this property, and I was like, there's too many. There's too many less than accepts. We're not going to be able to piece this together. A new description is going to have to be needed for what's left, right? You've taken this big chunk and you've deeded out all this space, and we need to know what's left in the middle.
Yeah.
And we can't get there based on the current description. So we're looking at that, right? We're trying to, we're literally mapping out what happened in the disbursement of this land. So that's when it can get complicated. Obviously, when it's a resale, there's a prior policy, it's easier, right? We're looking at the documents that got recorded. Are there mortgages that are recorded that we need to clear? Are there old mortgages that never got cleared? So they were hopefully already paid, but the lender didn't do their job and record a satisfaction to put everyone on notice that it was cleared. So taxes, judgments, we're looking at judgments on the seller, right? Got a credit card judgment or judgment maybe on the property itself from the HOA or the city for their grass being too long or, whatever it might be. So we're looking at all of that, making sure that if there's an LLC in the back chain, the proper people signed for that, that the LLC was actually active when the deed got recorded into their name or when the property got sold. So there's definitely a lot, but
A lot. This is exactly why you hire an attorney always. Even if your neighbor is selling a vacant parcel in between y'all's houses and you think it's going to be super easy, it's probably not, and you need to call an attorney or call Michelle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that it's funny because most people assume, like, because it's just my neighbor,
Yeah.
or it's my aunt and uncle.
He's owned it forever.
Yeah, it's my
It's
aunt and
easy.
uncle, and they're selling it to me. It shouldn't be a problem. You don't need to do a title search. I really, really advise that we do one because I heard someone say recently, it's like, it's not that you don't trust people, it's that you've got to prove to me first before I'll trust you, right? And I tell clients all the time, I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to say that your family would ever lie to you.
Yeah. Something just may be incorrect that they don't even know about.
They don't even know it,
Yeah.
or they forgot about it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, a lot of times we find second mortgages that don't get cleared, right? Or people forget about HELOCs, so they get out equity lines on their house and they never use them. So they pulled it, and maybe they used it once for like a project on their house, but then they paid it off. So they don't think anything of it. Oh no, everything's cleared. Well, technically you've paid it, but the bank has it recorded that that account has been closed and has been paid, right? So if you bought that property and you continue to move forward, then now you're going to have to deal with that cleanup. Now, may not be as hard as you think, but if that mortgage company has then been sold and bought by another mortgage company who's then been bought and sold by another mortgage, like, it can get pretty complicated. And the further out you go, the less likely you are to be able to get that documentation that it was cleared. And so you're going to have to find a buyer willing to take on that risk, right? So some title companies will say, sure, we'll insure over that, is what they call it. We'll insure over that problem. So the problem is minimal enough for them to take on the risk to cover it. However, in a contract, in a standard North Carolina contract, a seller has to give marketable title to the buyer. So a buyer could throw up their hands and say, no, we don't want insurable title. We don't want this issue possibly lingering here.
Because maybe they're trying to flip it, and then the next buyer is going to live in the house, and they're like, I don't want this.
Yeah, I don't want this.
Yeah.
I don't want this risk. Even though I could tell them all day long, look, the title insurance company wouldn't have insured over it unless it was minimal risk.
Yeah.
But for them, some people are very adamant. They want no issues. They want no title problems. And so if you can't get it cleared, now you're stuck with some property that you can't sell.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for the amount that you pay for title insurance,
which is really nothing.
It's nothing, especially for an owner's policy. If you're already getting a loan on top of it, the majority of that policy premium is going to the lender policy, and you're paying like maybe $26, maybe $50 for the owners, right? Because you're already having to get the lender policy. Why not just do it?
Yeah.
You know?
I remember you and I went through when my dad was buying a property, he had a cloud on the title, and I guess the brother of the seller had some kind of lien, or I forget exactly what it was, and he needed to sign something. Luckily, he lived locally.
Thankfully.
And I was like, you know what, Michelle? I'm a notary. I'm just going to go get this done. I'm going to go drive to this sketchy wherever I'm going. Get it done.
Yeah, you made that happen. I mean, and sometimes we need that, you know? Like, as the attorneys, we can find the problems and we can pinpoint the problems, but we need you guys sometimes to put your boots on the ground and go get it done to get things closed.
I knocked on his door for 30 minutes.
Oh,
so he came to the door, texted him, calling him. Oh, goodness gracious.
And see, and the bad part about that, I mean, luckily he was here. He was local. I mean, sometimes we
find...
alive.
What if he wasn't?
Alive, yes, exactly. We find problems like that, and the clients aren't even living anymore.
And then what do you do?
It's just like, okay.
What do you do?
Yeah. Yeah, what do you do then? What do you do then? And...
Wow.
Yeah,
we could probably go into a whole another 30 minutes of this. All right. So you mentioned while we were talking about LLCs. So I know, well, I feel like when you buy investment properties, probably should buy an LLC just for risk factors. But do you see, like, are most investors buying properties in LLCs? Are they buying it in their personal names? And then I know you can quit claim it, but then you have that due on sale clause. So talk about that whole situation and what you recommend in those kind of instances.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how big of an investor you want to be. I have seen it go both ways. I've seen investors buy properties solely in their name, and then once they've got a good amount, they deed those all over to an LLC they've created, right, for tax purposes and things like that. I recommend you have an LLC just to protect yourself from liability and have that LLC taking the brunt of that. I mean, you don't want, say, you get a tenant in there and then your tenant gets mad at you for something and they file a lien. You don't want them filing a lien on you personally. You want them doing it underneath the LLC's name.
Right.
Now, I mean, some people can be pretty clever about things and they'll file it under everybody's name, your uncle's name, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, if you're a smart tenant, you can easily go onto the Secretary of State website. Well, I'm not even going to tell you the process.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing too. It's like it provides some protection. I've had clients come to me and say, we have multiple LLCs. Should we have multiple LLCs to manage?
That is a big question.
Right, okay, do we have multiple LLCs to manage all of the properties that we renovate and we flip and sell? And then another LLC to manage the tenants and all of that? And my personal opinion, no. No, I don't think so. A lot of people think, oh, well, we need to do that because it protects us more so from that liability. But what we see happen is if you have too many of those and you have too many LLCs, then actually a judge could say you're trying to basically circumvent the system. You're trying to create too many LLCs in order to avoid liability. So they call it breaking the corporate veil. Okay. So we're going to say that no longer do you have that corporate veil protection because we see the only reason you've created all these LLCs is for liability. And so we're going to say, nope, you guys are all connected. And now there's no more of that corporate protection.
Interesting. Okay.
So I think it's better and probably better for your CPA.
Yeah.
And your tax accountant.
And your wallet.
Right? Because you've got to keep up with all the annual reports every year, all of the filings every year for those LLCs. Potentially the attorney fees to create those LLCs every time you get a new one. Yeah. So I just recommend just one.
Yeah.
Just run everything through that one LLC and you are still have that corporate protection from your personal self being protected from that liability, and the corporation itself takes on that liability. But maybe it's not needed if you're like, you know what, I'm just going to buy one rental property and own it for a little bit, or I'm going to buy this house and flip it and just resell it. Maybe there isn't any benefit for that. I'm not sure. I mean, I always tell people too, I'm like, I'm not a tax accountant. I'm not a CPA. So there could be tax laws involved here with a corporation that is super helpful for you. And maybe you can write off a lot more if you're going to do an LLC.
True.
So ask your CPA first. But I do see people just buying their individual names. I wouldn't recommend it if you were doing more than one. I would say get an LLC.
For sure. Is there
earn the money through that?
Okay. Is there a difference? Because some investors will buy multiple properties at one time. So is there a difference between just doing like a single transaction of one single family home that a investor is going to rent versus if they're buying multiple parcels all at once? Besides the amount of paperwork, is there anything else that's different in that process, or is it basically the same?
So the contract, I mean, you can add multiple parcels, but you have to be careful as to how those parcels are deeded. Right? So for example, I guess what I'm saying is you want to make sure if you want multiple parcels included in one transaction that it is the same seller. Right? So I've seen like a couple parcels were owned by the individual seller. A couple of the parcels maybe were still owned by the estate. So they're not really the same. I don't know if I would put those on the same contract. So
you would do separate closings for each of them then?
I would do separate contracts based on the owners. Like if the owners were different, or say you owned a couple properties and you were doing it as a bulk deal to someone else. But some of them, let's just say you didn't have you had an LLC and some in your individual name because you hadn't moved them over or something. maybe you do separate contracts for the ones owned by the LLC than the ones owned by you as an individual, because who we have signing is different. I don't know.
Okay, so there's a lot. So you're saying there's a lot of different.
There's a lot, and then you don't want to do separate parcels or separate properties in different counties. So that's huge, right? So you can't like sell like a property in Mecklenburg County and a property in Cabarrus County on the same contract.
Okay, I did not know that.
Right?
All right, so even like Cabarrus, Rowan, obviously 2 different counties, but it's kind of like a weird.
Like what? No, now I've got to, do all these different things. And then the parcels, they kind of, if it was vacant land, for example, I don't like.
So it's situational.
It is. Okay. That one's a hard one because I don't like doing vacant land contracts for parcels that are like, well, obviously in separate counties, but like one parcel's way over here and the other parcel's like way over here. It's like if they're adjacent to each other, okay. I guess you can think of it as, what kind of title search am I going to have to do on the land that you've put within this contract? Mm-hmm. Right? Am I going to have to do 5 different title searches in 5 different counties? Well, I'm not doing one contract for that. I'm sorry. Yeah. You need to do separate contracts for that, right? I mean, don't you want there to be a different value for this single family home as opposed to this single family home?
True.
I mean, because when the deed gets recorded, with how much excise tax the seller paid, showing how much you bought the property for. Mm-hmm. Right? It's giving that value to what it's being transferred for. So you don't want necessarily just, $1 million for these 2 properties. I mean, you could have an addendum that said the amount for both. Mm-hmm. So I think it is a really circumstantial. Okay. Just judgment call. Yeah. I think.
Makes sense.
Try what you want to within the same county, and don't be upset if the attorney's like, oh, we're separating these. Yeah. Like, this is too complex. We're separating these. Because, I mean, I have done contracts with multiple properties in the same county, separate single-family homes, and then I deeded them out separately. So it was all within one contract, like, $3 million for all of these properties. But then when it had a separate addendum to the contract that said, okay, this property is selling for $200,000. This property is selling for $350,000 or whatever it was. So that then when we at least did the deeds out, we had to do separate deeds out because there were separate title searches. So I'm charging you for 5 different searches, not just one. And then the deed would show. So it can be done, but it gets really complex when you try to put them all together. Okay, so it may be necessary to separate them out. Don't think that. I think a lot of people, I think the misconception on that is that if we all put it under one contract, we're going to save money. Not really. And now you've just made my head hurt. And now, it's like, it might just be better to separate it out for everybody's sake. How do you want to handle this?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So another kind of case-by-case question. So
a lot of real estate's case by case.
And especially with investors too, right?
Yeah.
So what if you have investors that are coming to you and they have like a wholesale deal, which I know totally just regulations have changed that a little bit. And then so wholesaling, seller financing, and subject to. I know those are 3 different types of transactions, but do you do closings for those types of transactions? Do you not do closings for some of those transactions? What are your thoughts on those? Because those are common.
I'm curious as to, like, when I think of wholesaling, what you mean by wholesaling. Like, what I think of and what you think of. So when you mean wholesaling, what do you mean by wholesaling?
So when I think of wholesaling, I think of it not being a real estate agent. I think of it being an investor. Okay. Knocking on doors. Okay. Finding a little old lady who needs to get out of her house. Yeah. And makes her a lowball offer. Yep. Gets it under contract. Has a contract that's for $100,000, and then goes and finds another investor.
Okay, gotcha. Finds a second end buyer.
I will sell you this contract for $150,000 so that he can make, or she can make, a little fee in the middle. And then they come to you and they're like, cool, I'm going to buy it, or I found the property. This is going to be the buyer.
Yeah.
The seller's in the middle. That's to me is a wholesaling deal.
Cool. Because that's what I think of a wholesaling deal.
Who doesn't? That's what it is.
I know.
Who doesn't think it's
I
that?
have had some people who have called me I would say within the last year or so, and I feel like it's changing. Like, I feel like the concept of wholesaling is changing. I could be wrong. I had someone call me the other day about a novation.
Oh, I've heard some crazy terms recently. I've heard people bring up things that I'm like, what are you talking about?
I had to Google it.
Yeah.
I had to Google it. I was like, what the heck is a novation? And when I read the description of a novation, in my head, I'm going, this is just an assignment. But they typically do business, I don't know, some other state, Texas or California or something, somewhere where I, have never practiced and, and I was just like, I don't know about this. Like, are you talking about an assignment? Like, and so people will call me all the time, do you do wholesaling deals? And I have to ask, well, what do you mean by wholesaling deal? Because I just feel like there's certain people who are trying to do, and some people say wholesaling is subject to, right? They don't distinguish between an assignment deal.
Well, that's a new investor who has gone to a couple of real estate association meetings and has bought a couple of programs and doesn't really know what they're doing, which is fair. I was there. I totally called attorneys. I may have called Michelle and asked these questions too, because I guess that's just how they're learning, and they just, maybe they want the education. Maybe they want you to educate them.
Well, and everyone everyone on TikTok and YouTube and everybody is saying that this is the way to do it, So I was just curious. Okay, so wholesaling deals, obviously, I do wholesaling deals, but some people love me and some people don't. Because I have certain ways that I do them.
Yeah, the legal ways probably, not the gray ways, because I know you don't work in the gray area.
I don't. I worked really, really hard for my law license.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I feel you.
And I paid a good penny for it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do anything that's going to cause me to potentially lose that.
I get it. I'm a rule follower too. I will do everything by the book.
I kind of am like, it's interesting because I've had questions before from realtors. And I just have to shake my head and say, we're just going to act like you did not ask me that question. Because, when you put that kind of word there, it kind of sounds like you're trying to do something illegal. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You did not mean that. We're going to take a step back and start over. But wholesaling, so the kind of deals you're talking about with an assignment, I do them. But the North Carolina Bar Association and the North Carolina Realtor Association has come out in the past that all parties need to be privy. Mm-hmm. Okay, because otherwise we really are trying to take advantage of the sweet old woman who's in a dire situation to sell her house. Mm-hmm. And could get more money for that house from an end buyer, which is the reason that you're doing the deal, right? I mean, you are being helpful, but you need to let her know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So the investors that I work with, I have been upfront with when they call me, do you do wholesaling? Yes, I do. But this is how I do it. And if you are not having that initial conversation with the person, with the current owner, when you go to hand them a contract, that you are going to be finding another end buyer, and you will, in the end, be getting a fee for finding that end buyer. And I
don't know why it's so hard to have that conversation. I guess they think that the seller is going to change their mind and be like, oh, okay, well, I'll just go get a real estate agent. But it's like, okay.
Yeah, well, never mind. Let me just find the end buyer.
Yeah.
No, you can tell them, I am going to do the legwork for you.
You're not paying a real estate agent. You're paying me, basically.
Yeah, I'm going to be the middleman. I'm going to do the legwork here to find you a good end buyer so we can get you closed and, get you moved on and get you a good price. But here's what I'm offering you. Mm-hmm. This is what it will be. Just know someone else is going to pay more for it.
Yeah.
And whether you want to do that deal, we can do that deal, all together. Everybody sees the settlement statement that shows here's the sale price that the sellers agreed to. Here is the assignment fee that middleman is getting, that the buyer is paying. And we're good. Everybody signs it. A, B, and C. So, B would be the middleman, the wholesaler. But everybody signs that statement. Everybody knows what's going on. I'll do them. But if you want me to do it, what we call is like, well, a dry closing. You want me to do like an A to B as the wholesaler, but you don't send me the funds on the first. And then you want me to just turn around knowing that B to C is going to take over. Then that's not going to work, right? Because now we're keeping that seller from knowing what's really going on. And now the transaction is not privy to everybody. And that's illegal. We're not going to do that. But if you want to break it up, so some wholesalers, it just kind of depends on what they're able to do. You can do a contract from the current owner to the wholesaler, and then do a whole separate contract from the wholesaler to another end buyer.
But will the wholesaler then have to have the funds?
But the wholesaler would have to have the funds.
Yeah, and they normally don't. So
yeah. So I have seen recently, it's a newer thing. I don't know. I've only done a couple transactions like this, but there seems to be, nice little lending people out here that are like, okay, well, we'll front you the money as the wholesaler. You pay us a fee, and we'll do a back-to-back. So it allows them to do a back-to-back. I still get the funds.
Yeah.
But that middle wholesaler, the funds come in from, this private individual.
Money lender, yeah.
And, from money lender. And then we pay them off on the second deal.
Okay.
So they bring the funds in and then they pay them off. So I like it cleaner when it's an assignment and we have everybody looking at it. Everybody knows what's going on. Then the seller's not mad at me too. Well, who are you? And I thought I was dealing with, so-and-so. And okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe just let them know what's going on.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Assignments, I think, have gotten better. I think people have realized how we're supposed to do them, how we need to have it clear to everybody. I'm hoping that more attorneys are giving kickback for trying to, do blind closings where there's only a settlement statement that the seller signs and there's only a settlement statement that the buyer signs. And so the seller never sees the assignment fee. Like that's not good, right? I that used to be huge, and I'm hoping that that's slowing down, which is what's causing wholesalers that I do work with or who are new wholesalers that call me and, oh, I heard you do assignments. I'm like, please tell me you heard that this is how I do assignments.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. I'm hoping that continues, right? Because that's the kind of wholesaling I'm okay being involved in.
Yeah, for sure. The fair way.
And then you mentioned subject to.
Yeah, subject to. I feel like a lot of attorneys don't want to do that.
I will not do it.
Yeah.
I will not do it. I think it is an awful idea. I understand like the draw to it. I understand why people are like, oh yeah, you know, this is the way to go. You're keeping maybe potentially a really low interest rate on a current mortgage, and not having to get another one, right, at a higher interest rate because rates have gone up. But I've run into some situations. I wasn't a part of these deals, but I get calls from agents who are now trying to help current owners who, you know, they knew it was a subject to dealer with a wholesaler involved. So it was a very complex deal. And come to find out, the wholesaler was supposed to pay off the outstanding dues on the mortgage or the payments on the mortgage to get it caught up, so that then the new homeowner was just paying monthly on this existing mortgage, right? But that's not what happened. The wholesaler in the middle who connected these two deals, they didn't make sure that current mortgage got caught up. And so now here we have a family living in a house who, you know, most of the time they're Hispanic or they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know everything that they were signing. And they're stuck in a home that they're getting notices that the home is being foreclosed on.
Yeah. Because
they knew it was a subject to. They knew they were now paying on the prior owner's mortgage, but they didn't know it hadn't been caught up. They were told it was going to get caught up. and didn't get caught up.
Yeah.
So what do you do there, right? That's awful. It's like you could, I'm not saying they can't be done.
Yeah.
It's just not something I want to touch.
Yeah.
I don't need to be hurting people's families or people in general. And I don't want to take on that liability, because you could have a completely good subject to deal where you have agreements in place where the seller knows what's going on, the buyer knows exactly what's going on. They know that they are, taking this property with the current mortgage, and it's their responsibility to pay that mortgage from here on out until it's canceled. They've got the seller on board to give them authorization to talk to the current lender. The current seller is okay with it still affecting their credit. Right? So, yeah, subject to deal is great, but that seller still has that mortgage on their credit. They're not going to be able to go get another mortgage and buy another house just because you had somebody else take over, You could have all these agreements in place, but somebody somewhere along the line is going to get screwed.
Yeah.
I don't see the way to get it done. Now, I mean, if it's really that, maybe it's an assumable loan, maybe go through that process, which is tedious and not fun. I've done one assumption in the 10 years I've practiced.
Not assumable in North Carolina?
Some loans are.
Okay.
VA loans? FHA.
Okay.
Just people don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you gotta be approved for the loan. You still gotta get the approval, just like the current owner did.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, technically you can do it. Yeah. I've seen family do it. Right? Or a couple who owned a house together and now they're divorced. One was able to, maybe only one of them was on the loan, so the other one was able to assume the loan and move it over. Or it was a family house, like the dad owned it and then was able to let the son assume the loan or something like that. But it's really rare.
Yeah. All right. This was so much information. I love it. Okay, so now we're going to, we have our Fast 5 question segment. It's our new segment. That's super fun. So we got this new timer for those of you that watch the podcast. And we also have these new beautiful mugs for those of you that watch. All right, so I'm going to start this timer. We're going to do a minute per question. And we'll ask 5 questions.
Oh my gosh, we might have to do this a couple times. We will see if I can stay within the minute. I'm very, very chatty today.
We'll see how it goes. Okay, we'll start the time. What is your most asked question?
Well, okay, so at the closing table, my most asked question is, when's my first payment?
Yep, I bet.
But before closing, my most asked question is, why does my spouse have to sign?
Okay, that's good. Let's see if you can explain that in 40 seconds.
Okay, so in North Carolina, we have a statutory law where if you are married, either at the time you purchase the property or you sell the property, your spouse has to sign because they have a marital interest in the property the moment you get married. So we have to have them sign the deed, the lien waiver. I'm not saying they're necessarily entitled to funds. That's a whole other thing.
Got it.
But they do have to sign the documentation.
Okay.
Because we are a good Bible Belt state.
Yes.
That's
one
my
to buy,
best
2 to sell.
explanation.
Perfect. And you had 5 seconds to spare.
Woo!
Fantastic. This is like a game show. I really do
Can
love this.
she do it?
Okay. Question number 2. What is the biggest misconception that people, investors, have about real estate attorneys?
Real estate attorneys?
Or the closing process. Just what's the biggest misconception that you have found that people are like, oh, I didn't know that? Sorry, that was a long question.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like the attorney does nothing. I feel like that's the biggest misconception.
Which we learned today that is not true at all.
Yeah, like they're always just, I get the question, like, why is the attorney fee so high? What did you do? I've actually been asked that before at a table. And I said, well, let me explain to you what I've done up until this point. I think that's the biggest misconception, that all the attorney does is sign papers with you at the end of closing. And like we talked about, not all we do. We do a
Clearly.
lot more than that.
Clearly not, because we could have talked for 2 hours. All right, perfect. 1 second to spare. Okay. Back to the minute. Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh, God, go back.
Really
Yeah, there you go.
far. Okay. What's your most memorable closing experience? Funny, bad, good, whatever.
I mean, okay, so obviously, you know, the bad ones are the ones that stand out. I used to travel for closings. So I would go to different locations and offices and do my signings. And I had one time where the buyer and the seller and the agent, they just were like at each other. And I literally had it was the agent and his client. And they started going at it at the closing table, yelling at each other, cussing at each other, just going crazy. And I'm just sitting there, and I was a newer attorney. You know, I was just trying to get business. And I'm just sitting there oh my goodness. I don't know what to do here. I think that was the craziest closing I've ever had. Literally, I thought they were going to fight.
Duke it out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Duke. No, in there, in front of me.
Oh my gosh.
I thought they were going to duke it out.
Wow, that is crazy. All right. 2 more questions, I think. All right. What is your number one piece of advice for people that are listening from an attorney to those out there buying investment properties?
I would say if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Right? Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. If it's selling for so much less than what you think it should be selling for, there's probably a good reason.
Yeah.
And there's a problem. So maybe get an attorney involved in those deals earlier rather than later to see if it's worth your time and investment to even pursue that property at all.
Yep, because you can find some kind of document that needs to be signed by a brother that hasn't been able to be signed in a year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right, last question. Let's get this back to the minute. All right. How can investors make the closing process easier and smoother for you and everybody involved? What can they do just to make it a smoother process?
I think the main thing, the best investors I work with lay everything out at the very beginning. They say, Michelle, here's the contract. Here's what's going on. If they haven't gotten an in buyer, I'm planning on getting one. I've already talked to the seller. They give me all the information up front, and they make sure everybody knows who I am. So when I reach out to the seller, they're like, who are you? No, they already know who I am, and everybody's connected in that one email or just in communication. They've already done that connection piece. Because when everybody is all over the place, people get really upset.
Yeah, no, I can totally believe that. And just be honest, right?
Yes.
Be honest. Don't lie.
Yes.
Tell me the truth.
Yes,
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
help
that's
you.
the biggest thing. It's people will come to me and they'll say, well, the seller told me, and I'm like, cool. Did they give you anything to prove what they're telling you? Or do you have any documentation? Sometimes I don't know what I'm supposed to ask for. Okay, this is what you need to ask for, right? But definitely get proof behind what they're saying.
Yeah.
And you can make it that you're not distrusting them. Just say, you can put it on me if you want, right? You could say,
The attorney needs it.
the attorney needs, I actually know, I've talked with the attorney, and she said that based on the situation, she needs X, Y, and Z. And then now you're not seeming distrustful.
Yeah, we'll just blame it on you.
But
That's
just
perfect.
blame it on me.
That's perfect. All right, Michelle, this has been awesome. So let's tell our listeners where to find you. What all does Gabrath Costner do besides real estate closings? And we'll kind of leave it at that.
Okay, where to find me? So my office is on Church Street in Concord, North Carolina. So 180 Church Street Northeast. It's a little white brick house with a blue door, which I love.
Super cute.
Super cute. And then you can find me on the Galbraith Costner website. You can find me via email, obviously. I don't know if you
I can connect you guys, so don't worry. I'll give you her information.
Obviously, I have a telephone number. I do respond via text too, so it kind of makes me a little bit different than some other closing attorneys. If you want a faster response from me, do email me because I don't check my phone as much, but I can respond via text if I need to. But Galbraith Costner, we do a lot more than just resale. Like I told you, my niche is resale, right? That's what I'm good at. That's my jam. I stay there. I like to stay in an area that I'm really good at. I have expertise in. But we do commercial real estate. We do estate planning and trust. We do corporate documents, so LLC setups, S corps, whatever you want to make. What else?
I mean, it sounds like a lot. You guys do a lot.
Yeah, so, good roundabout kind of things that go with real estate. I do have a couple clients that I have done estate work for or LLC documentation for, but I also have realized that my workload with just regular residential and with my investors has been steady, and I don't want to do a disservice to you. Like, you may need those documents kind of quickly, especially estate planning stuff, and I don't necessarily have the time to hone in on that. So I usually will, hand that over to the attorneys that do that more on a daily basis. So.
Perfect. Good referral partner. Well,
Yes.
awesome. Well, thank you, Michelle, for
Yes.
being here. And thank you guys for listening. And we will see you next time at Branching Out. See ya.